Hey, what's up, everybody? I think my mic was off for just a few seconds, but I think it's on now. So let's get this party started. Okay, I'm here to explain a little bit about pivot points. Now, I had a request for this video from a buddy of mine who shall remain nameless, but he knows who he is, so I'm sure he'll be happy to see this video. Now, a pivot point is sort of like what it sounds like. It's when the market sort of has a reversal and like right here could be considered a pivot point where it starts to head back up, and this could be a pivot point where it starts to head back down. And it's not really something that is 100%. You can turn on this indicator and will tell you when the pivot point is. Now, I'm not going to say that's 100% accurate. I did see some email from Orox, and I'm still skeptical, but they're telling me they can predict the top with accuracy, and I want to see it to believe it. But that's what this is all about: is pivot points, basically hitting the top, hitting the bottom. How do you get close to that? Okay, well, you have to use the data you have on the charts. So we have some data from this point. We have some data from this top right here. Okay, so I can't say that we would have known this before the fact, which is why it's kind of hard. Charts are always like it's an uphill battle, guys. You know what I mean? It's never right. But if you would have realized that this was going to be the case, you could have certainly played that, because this definitely played out. This line that I drew, because watch, we have one, two, three. And it doesn't matter. If there's three hits, that means this is a valid trend line, even two. So once it hit here, it should have been an indication that, hey, and I was watching that when it happened. This could be a breakout point at one point, or are we going to follow it down? But it's one of those things where pivot points happen because resistance shows up, and it's a matter of being able to identify that on the fly. You know what I mean? And I didn't even realize this was going to be a pivot point when it happened. Of course, I started making charts right here, down here. I think this pump right here, when we see the first big green arrow, that's my first day. It was April Fool's, and I thought it was a joke. I was like, "What's going on? Is somebody messing with my chart, or somebody hacked me and they're just doing this because they know?" And it was just a nice surprise to see us pump like a $1,000. $1,000 isn't anything nowadays, but back then when we were down at 3,700 or 4,000, it was a lot of money. And uh, what I wanted to show you is something that it's a lagging indicator, but something that really indicates that a reversal has occurred and it's not just a fluke, like we're going to drop back down, is when this golden cross happens, especially on the daily. I made a post earlier about golden crosses, and it's in the group, and it's in multiple groups on Facebook. It's just a bunch of pictures with with some info written on them. I wrote on every one of them. I has a few paragraphs on there and explains exactly what a golden cross versus a death cross. But just so it's quick, this is a death cross right here. When the blue line crosses above, the blue line is a 200 MA. This is the 50 MA. Okay, the 50 MA is a shorter time frame, so when it's on top, it's a more of a bull market. You can see that that's the case here when we were above it. Look, we were below it, all this, and look, we were dropping, and we finally got above it, and look, we hit 14K in no time, and then we dropped back even below it, and then we dropped back down to 3,700, 3,800, or whatever. And finally we crossed back above it. Well, and this is what's weird, is this is kind of like screwy. It doesn't, not all crosses are created equal, because look, this cross didn't result in much, you know what I mean? It did drop, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it dropped anything close to what this cross brought, you know what I mean? Or maybe it did, you know? It's one of those things. Not all crosses are created equal, guys. You go to the 4 hour time frame and you can see many crosses. The daily time frame is going to give you the most important, the best results with crosses like this. Like, you're going to see the biggest swings. So now that we got crosses out of the way, that is one reason I bring that up, is that could show you where a pivot is happening. And I really I don't want to say that's my last resort because, but whenever this happens, this kind of tells me, okay, it was a pivot. Looks like we're going to be heading up from here. And look, and the reason why I think that is because look, we were really in consolidation down here. Accumulation phase is what people call it. We broke up. And once we got back above the 200 MA, things and the 50 MA, things started looking a bit bullish. That is what happens. That's why I use these indicators. It's really simple. If you're below them, it's bearish. If you're above them, it's bullish. And look, we were below them for quite a while, and we finally broke above the 50. When we did that, it was uphill from there. It was bullish. We got to the point where the 50 MA was rising, and it looked like it could intersect with that. And I think traders saw that, and they reacted to it prematurely. So they were like, look, a golden cross is going to happen. And if you would have got in at this level, you would have made 3 or 4x from going up that. I know that sounds like nothing in Bitcoin talk, but back then it was a lot. And I made a lot of money on this. I remember buying right in this area when we broke into the above the 50 MA. I was thinking, all right, man, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And I was certainly right about that. And I will never forget that. And I'll never stop admitting that because that was my first real time trading is right in this area is when I first started trading with real money. And then I started making charts right on that pump. And it was right at the end of this pivot point right here. This was the pivot point because there's many reasons for that, guys. And let's go into a little bit more detail. Okay, so this is back whenever we were. This was the whole chart at one point. Remember, we never even had 40K on our mind. 40K was just a joke. Like if anybody would have told you it was going to hit 40K, you would have probably laughed at them, right? So, anyways, you have a good triangle right here. Okay, so you can see this is about to form a triangle, but it didn't quite get to the end of it. But it got close. And we were in this triangle for 2.5 years. And this pivot point, how can you indicate, how can you find where it is on this chart now that you have all the data you have? You can find it because look, there's support right here. And when we hit the support, it bounced. When we hit this resistance, it bounced. That's what it's all about is looking for that. Like this cross can help you identify, hey, the bounce did happen. It's not going to turn around now because the bulls are fully in charge. This is a sign of a bull market when you're above the 50 MA, 200 MA, and the cloud and the 50 MAs above the 200 MA. That is all bullish. That's why we were uphill. We went up crazy right there. And we did the same thing over here, guys. So it's one of those things that recognizing something like that will help you whenever you say, hey, we hit resistance here and but you wouldn't have known that because you only had this pivot point at that point. So that's when you really have to get creative, guys, and you have to go back here and try to find support in history, and also you'll be able to use your Bollinger Bands and other things that I have them on, but I just have them blanked. I mean, all of that stuff, guys. You're just gonna have to use it to your advantage. Trading is never easy. If it was, everybody would do it. I know it sounds cliche what I just said, but it's true. Uh, Nothing in trading is going to be easy. Now that we have that pivot point, it gave you a better idea of where future pivot points could show up. But you have to have 2 points to have the trend line, and we didn't quite have that until we hit this. So it's one of those things, guys. That this pivot point wasn't even a thing until once we hit this. I mean, I guess you could have drawn that and said, hey, look, we've have resistance here, but that was never a guarantee. I mean, if this would have dipped a bit further, all you would have done is taken this line and drawn it like this. You know what I mean? Or that. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, guys, where you have to be fluid with the markets when you trade and learn these pivot points are not easy to predict. They're just as easy to predict as the price tomorrow. So this is one pivot point right here that was quite simple to predict because we had this data and this data, which leads you to say, hey, if we dip, we were dipping right here. I mean, if you would have been thinking about it and said, well, I don't think we're going to dip any further than, where we got to, which was about 3,800 or whatever, because I've drawn the support line here and I think it's going to hold because it has not failed before. And it didn't fail that time either. So I'm expecting this line to be a super major support, and it will probably continue for years because I'm not sure if Bitcoin comes back down. I mean, guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Bitcoin is crazy. It can come back down. So we all need to be aware and prepared for that. And these pivot points that uh, my buddy uh, my buddy requested from the group, you can see up here. The last one I'm going to go over is the one that's currently we're dealing with, and that's right here. And the reason why you could tell this is sort of the end of the bull is the trend has been there's not any higher highs, guys. So right now you could tell that's a pivot point right there, and all we're doing is going down at this point. The 50 EMA is gonna either what it's going to do here is if we stay above the 50 EMA, that'll be awesome, right? But what's going to happen is the 50 EMA is going to level back out because this is starting to level out and the 50 EMA. But what's the problem is will it happen before the candle? Will the candles keep up with it? And my answer is probably not. I mean, I don't think the 50 EMA 50 EMA may go up to where it even crests above uh, the cloud and make crests inside the cloud. That's a big deal, and we'll have to keep an eye on that. But like I said, the pivot point is clear, and this may be a pivot point in some people's mind, but that's if you're a quick trader. This too. So I mean, if you would have sold here, bought here, sold there, bought here, you would have bought a new house, a new car. You would be rolling in money. So learning these pivot points is good. Is a good practice and a good thing to try to do, but it's not easy, guys. I don't want to sit here and pretend like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. I don't know uh, much about future price movement, guys. I know about where the price might go. Like, let's say, hey, I think it's going to go down over the next couple of days. And I'm usually pretty good with that. But I'm not going to be able to tell you it's going to stop at 28. I mean, if I see support there, I will mention it sometimes. But a lot of times I won't even mention prices because I don't want people to be like, oh, you told me it was going to stop at 28. No, and I know that these pivot points, guys, that he had requested, I try to do my best and explain to you, but I want to be honest with you too. Nobody is clairvoyant, at least nobody I know of. So, uh, more or less, don't try to predict the price as much or even the pivot points. I mean, the pivot points are going to be hard to do. If you can do it, use past like the one I showed you earlier, guys, where here, let me make the chart smaller, this one right here where support goes along the bottom right here. You know what I mean? So we had a long bout where we're above it. But look, when we dropped right here, that absolutely acted as support again. And that was predictable. If we would have seen the drop coming, you could have known, hey, I'm going to buy whenever it hits that age old support. And that's exactly what happened. People had their buys set there. And that's why you saw one of the biggest spikes in volume ever on these in this time period right here. And it's something to take into account, guys. That's why those two volume candles were giant. And it's because people had buys set there and they realized, hey, if and people were buying it like crazy when it got that low because they realized, hey, it hit support. I don't think it's going down any further. It's time to buy because I'm at the bottom, I think, and I don't there's nothing to lose at that point. If you think it's only going to go up from there, why not buy? You know what I mean? And that's what people were thinking, even bots, people had their bots buying left and right. I don't know why the chart goes negative. I sure hope Bitcoin never goes negative. I don't want to have to owe people because I own Bitcoin. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end the video there. It's just a quick, well, it wasn't really quick. I went on forever, but it was just a little explanation about pivot points, and I hope it helps. I mean, I'm not a I'm not a Madame Cleo here. I'm gonna tell you exactly. Use support and resistance. Use indicators to your advantage. You could tell this was a pivot point because the 50 EMA stopped us from going down any further. But it's not like you could have made a killing off of this trade. But you still could have made quite a bit of money if you played it right. Because look, this trend line showed you where the end of the top went. So, I mean, we tested it again. So, it's one of those things, guys. You get what you give. You know what I mean? The more effort you put into trading, the more you can trade. I trade about 2 or 3 times a week. but there's some people that trade multiple times a day, multiple times an hour. So, I mean, if that's you, go at it, do your best, make sure you make that profit. If not, you need to step back and reassess the situation. And that's what I did, and realized, hey, I'm making more profit off of my uh, spot trading over a couple of days versus, I always call it spot. I don't know. It's swing trading, I guess, versus trading 10 times a day, and I'm losing half the trades. You know what I mean? It's because I'm trying to force trades. I'm thinking, oh, that might work, when in actuality I knew better. So it's one of those things, guys. I don't want to keep going on and making this a run on video, but I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I hope you learned something, guys. If you have any requests, please let me know. I'm trying to make my YouTube channel, I'm trying to grow it and make it have better content, stuff that you guys want to see. So what I need from you is recommendations on what you want to see. If you want to see a certain indicator covered, you tell me and I'll cover it for you. Even if I don't know how to use the indicator, I'll go online and I'll figure it out, and then I will come back and show you. That way we'll both scratch each other's back. You know what I mean? So anyways, I hope you learned something, and I appreciate it, guys.